Nation's premier U.S. Senate races is expected to unfold right here in New Hampshire. It's an open seat, but at the moment there are no declared high-profile Republican candidates. One potential GOP contender is Walter McFarlane, who joins us this morning in studio as he considers a campaign. Mr. McFarlane, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Adam. Great to be with you.
So for starters, let's just tell people a little bit about who you are and why you're considering a run for U.S. Senate.
Sure. So grew up here right in the Manchester area, born and raised. Went to Trinity High School and then got a business degree at Georgetown and a graduate degree at Canisius College, and then had a successful 25-year career as a business owner and CFO, mostly of manufacturing companies. I've created hundreds of jobs in that capacity. But I always had the political and public policy bug, going back to my time in my young 20s, volunteering here on campaigns like Ray Wazorik's and Bill Zelliff's and Judd Gregg's, and being a staffer on Bob Dole's presidential campaign. And it's always something I had a passion for. And after selling a company and having a successful business career, I've decided I wanted to get back into it. And so I ran for Congress last year. I got in rather late, but did really well for how late I got into it, and made some really good connections with some folks, enjoyed meeting more people and talking more about these issues, and so I'm considering getting in for 26.
What are some of the top issues that you would want to bring to Washington? Yeah,
so for me, I'm a small government conservative, right? And that doesn't mean a small government, but it means the smallest possible to accomplish its goals. And for me, we've lost all sense of our fiscal control, right? We have $37 trillion in debt. We have this big, beautiful bill we're talking about, but we're not talking enough about the fact that we're having our kids and grandkids pay for our current lifestyle. And I want to bring some fiscal conservative values to Washington, make sure that we're not just talking about, you know, one party, the Republicans want to talk about the revenue side and decreasing taxes, and the Democrats want to talk about the expense side and benefits. But we can't sustain that. We can't bounce back and forth between Republican and Democrat viewpoints on how to do that and expect that we're going to control the deficit. So I want to look at that. I also want to make sure that with America First, we don't abandon our role at the table. We can't just get up from the table and let decisions be made without us. We have Israel today doing what they're doing in Iran, and we have leaders from Europe sitting at a table with Iranians negotiating things, and we're not at the table. And I think we need to do a better job of making sure America first, and making sure that we're following what's good for our country doesn't at the same time mean we're stepping back from the world stage, because the world is a better place when we're at the table.
You touched on a lot there, but yeah, in terms of restraining government spending, you know, we just saw this whole Department of Government Efficiency effort with Elon Musk. There was a lot of theatricality and sort of media heat on this, and ultimately, if the law doesn't change, in the end, that spending can come back, essentially. So how would you approach things differently, I guess, when it comes to cutting spending, given the lessons just learned from how DOGE unfolded?
Yeah, so I think sometimes, and both parties do this, they snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. The idea of cutting down on government waste and fraud and those things, all of us agree with that, right? But how you do it matters. Right? And we have subject matters at every department within our government. We can't go around those subject matter experts, right? We have to use them and say, okay, what doesn't work anymore? Where should we look for fraud? What was a good program and policy that was put in place 20 years ago that we don't need anymore, should be redirected? But don't go around the subject matter experts. Don't fire them all. And for God's sakes, don't leave the ones that are still standing so, you know, the wind is taken out of their sails, right? And they're looking for the exit themselves, even if they haven't been removed. That's not a way to fix the problem.
If you're in the U.S. Senate right now, what are you doing about the big, beautiful bill?
So at 35,000 feet, the big, beautiful bill itself, or any big, beautiful bill, regardless of what party is doing it, whether it's the Republicans on taxes and immigration, or whether it was the Democrats on health care and Obamacare, the big, beautiful bill doesn't tend to recognize that the other party is going to be in control in 2 or 4 or 6 years when the majority changes. And when you pass a big, beautiful bill with only one party support, invariably when the other party gets in, they're going to chip away at that big, beautiful bill. And when they chip away at it, they usually do it in such a way that it makes that bill less effective, but also costs us more and adds to our debt and deficit. We need to have sensible people on both sides tackling these issues and not just jam something through that's one party's viewpoint.
And obviously the president very much wants this bill.
He does.
You know, it's hard to find any statewide Republican candidate these days who is not 100% pro-Trump. Where do you stand on loyalty to the president?
My loyalty, if I run and if elected, will be to the Constitution of the United States and not to one person. One of my issues is, you know, we had the Speaker Mike Johnson last week say, don't dare question or challenge the President of the United States. Well, wait a minute, Mr. Speaker. Not only is it our right in this country to question our leaders, I would argue it's our moral responsibility to question our leaders. And speaking truth to power, saying, Mr. President, your concepts are right here, but execution matters. How we do this matters. Process matters. And you see where legislators have engaged with the White House on these things. The president has modified his stance on things. When issues are brought up surrounding Medicaid and rural hospitals, for example, the president has said, okay, we need to look at that. So it is healthy for us to say, wait a minute, Mr. President, this is a good idea, but can we tweak this? That's the way the process should work.
As a U.S. Senator, would you be counseling the White House right now to stay out of the Israel-Iran conflict?
I don't know that I would. Listen, Iran has been a problem, a thorn in our side for decades now. And let's back up to point out that we have a part in that problem, right? President Bush 41 chose not to remove Saddam Hussein from power because his subject matter experts under him said, listen, Saddam Hussein is a necessary balance of power in the region. Bush 43 didn't listen to those same people and remove Saddam Hussein from power. There was no balance of power after Saddam was gone. Iran started through its proxies, whether it's Hamas in Gaza or Hezbollah in Lebanon or the Houthis in Yemen, started inflicting chaos in the world. And it's long since time that we resolved that and took away Iran's ability to do that. So I wouldn't counsel the president not to get involved. In fact, as I said earlier, it is important that America has a seat at the table, and not just a seat at the table, sitting at the head of the table.
Let's circle back to some politics.
Sure.
A lot of Republicans are looking at this Senate race and saying, gosh, Scott Brown is probably our best option. What do you tell them?
You know, unlike what the Democrats did, the Democrats basically anointed someone, right? They said Chris Pappas is the guy, and, you know, Senator Shaheen endorsed him, and it's over. I think it's healthy to have a primary process. I think it's healthy for people like me, if I get into it, people like Scott Brown, if he gets into it, to have these debates and talk about it so the people of the Granite State get to decide who represents them. Scott's a good guy, but I think it's premature on our side to say anyone's the front runner or anybody has the support of a committee or anyone else.
How would you take on Chris Pappas? Obviously, in his congressional record, 4-0, a lot of different Republicans have taken different strategies, different approaches, and they've all been defeated.
Not only have they all been defeated, but it's been 54 to 46 in each one of those races. An incumbent only getting 54% of the vote. An incumbent getting 54% of the vote in two elections where the Democratic side won in this state for the presidency is not a popular incumbent. That's not an incumbent that this state wants. It's the Republicans not winning. And so we need to take a different approach. We need a candidate like me who says, look, I have some deeply held convictions, but I also know that I represent everyone in the state. Not just the people that agree with me, not just the people that have the same letter R after their name, but everybody, and make sure that we're doing a better job reaching independents and undeclared voters. And I think there is a unique opportunity if we say, look, we're for a strong economy, we're for good security, but we are going to stay the heck out of your lives. We're not going to tell you how to conduct your lives. We're not going to tell you what to do with your bodies. I think if a Republican candidate stood up and did that, if a Republican candidate pointed out that Chris Pappas on 25 occasions crossed the party aisle to vote with Matt Gaetz and a handful of other extreme Republicans to first toss out a speaker, and then for 3 weeks make sure our country didn't have a speaker. At the same time, Israel was attacked by Hamas. Russia was stepping up its attacks on Ukraine, and we had a budget to pass. That's irresponsible. And that's Chris Pappas's idea of bipartisanship. So every time he speaks of how bipartisan he is, I'm going to remind voters of those 25 times he voted with Matt Gaetz.
And quickly, before we wrap up, one more thing on the Republican primary here. Obviously, no one is in, and you pointed that out. What would make you a better choice for Republicans than Scott Brown?
Well, I think I just laid that out in terms of how I would approach it. First, how I would go after Chris Pappas and his record. I think that's unique from the way other people have handled it. Look, he goes around the state and he says, I brought this agency 100,000, I brought this agency 300,000, I did this. And I would remind people, Chris, that's our money. You took it from us, went to Washington, brought it back, and now you want a pat on the back? No, thank you. Just stay out of our pocket and leave our money here. We know best what to do with it.
All right, Walter McFarlane, keep us posted on what happens or not when it comes to the U.S. Senate.
Will do. Thanks so much, Adam. Really appreciate the time.